You know, it's funny. How something is said is often way more powerful than what is actually being said. Today, we are diving into this invisible architecture that quietly guides our choices every single day. It's called the framing effect, and the big idea is that just by changing the description of a choice without changing a single fact, you can completely flip what people decide to do. To really see how powerful this is, let's just start with a super simple choice you've probably faced.
Okay, picture this. You're at the grocery store, staring at 2 packages of ground beef. One label proudly says 80% lean. The one right next to it says 20% fat. Now, these are describing the exact same product. It's the same meat.
So I gotta ask you, do those two labels feel the same to you? Probably not. If you're like most of us, that positive frame, 80% lean, just sounds way more appealing. This simple little choice is actually the perfect doorway into a really profound glitch in how we think. A glitch that was first discovered in a now legendary experiment.
So let's rewind to 1981. 2 psychologists, Amos Tversky and Daniel Kahneman, came up with this hypothetical life or death scenario. And what they found would pretty much change how we think about making decisions forever.
Here's the setup they gave people. Imagine you're in charge. There's this terrible disease outbreak, and the experts say it's going to kill 600 people. You have 2 programs to fight it, and you have to pick one.
Okay, so the first group of people saw these 2 options. Program A is the sure thing. You are guaranteed to save 200 lives. Program B is the gamble. There's a 1 in 3 chance you save everybody, but a 2 in 3 chance you save no one. So what's your gut say? What would you choose?
Well, the results were not even close. When the choice was framed as a gain, when it was all about lives saved, a whopping 72% of people chose the safe bet, Program A. They wanted to lock in that certainty of saving 200 people.
Okay, but this is where it gets really wild. Tversky and Kahneman took the exact same problem to a totally different group of people. The only thing they did was change the words.
So for this new group, the options were framed in terms of lives lost. Program C, 400 people will die for sure. Program D, a 1 in 3 chance that nobody dies, but a 2 in 3 chance that all 600 people die. So again, what's your gut reaction here?
And here's the shocker. The results completely flipped on their head. Faced with a loss, a massive 78% of people suddenly chose the gamble, Program D. They would rather risk it all than accept the certainty of 400 people dying.
Now, just let that sink in for a second. The outcomes are mathematically identical. Saving 200 people out of 600 is the exact same thing as 400 people dying out of 600. The gamble is the same, the only thing that changed were the words, the frame.
And this just perfectly shows the risky choice framing effect. When we're thinking about what we can gain, we get cautious, right? We become risk-averse. We want that sure thing. But the second we're faced with what we could lose, we suddenly become risk-seeking. We're willing to gamble to avoid a guaranteed bad outcome. I mean, this just flies in the face of rational decision-making. So, why do our brains do this?
To really understand this bizarre flip-flop, we've got to look under the hood, at the psychological engine that's driving it all. It's something called prospect theory.
Prospect theory basically tells us that we don't think in absolute final numbers. Instead, we're constantly thinking about gains and losses from where we are right now, our reference point. So it's not about how much money you have in the end, it's about whether you feel like you're winning or losing along the way.
And this explains exactly what we just saw in that experiment. When we're in a gain frame of mind, we play it safe. We become risk-averse. Locking in a win just feels better. But the second we shift into a loss frame, our whole behavior flips. We become risk-seekers. A guaranteed loss is just so painful that we're suddenly willing to roll the dice to try and escape it.
At the very heart of this is a powerful emotional quirk called loss aversion. To put it simply, losing hurts way more than winning feels good. And researchers think the psychological sting of a loss is about twice as powerful as the pleasure you get from an equivalent gain. Now, this isn't just some weird thing that happens in a lab. This bias has huge implications for the real world, especially when it comes to making really important decisions about our health, where choices are often framed as a chance of survival versus a chance of mortality.
But it turns out the framing effect doesn't hit everyone the same way. One of the biggest factors in how susceptible you are is your numeracy, which is basically just how comfortable and skilled you are with numbers. And the data on this is just striking. First, look at that bar for the low numeracy group. See that massive gap? That shows how much the frame completely changed their perception of risk. Now look at the bar for the high numeracy group. It's tiny. The frame barely made a dent. And this reveals something really important. The people who might struggle the most with numbers are the ones most easily swayed by the words used to describe them.
So, if framing hits the most vulnerable people the hardest, is there anything we can do about it? Is there a way to level the playing field, to maybe de-bias our decisions with a pretty simple tool?
And this leads us to a really fascinating question. Could something as simple as a visual aid help cut through all that confusing language? Could it help people see the cold, hard facts underneath, especially the people who need that clarity the most?
Well, researchers decided to test this head-on. They took the same kind of medical framing problem, but this time they showed the numbers alongside different kinds of simple visuals, things like icon arrays, bar graphs, and pie charts.
And the results were just stunning. For that same low numeracy group, look what happened. That giant framing effect we saw before, it's almost completely gone. These simple little charts let them see the reality behind the words, and it completely overrode the emotional pull of the frame.
This leads to a really powerful and, I think, optimistic takeaway. What we sometimes call a cognitive bias or a difficulty understanding might not be some permanent flaw in our brains. A lot of the time, the problem is just in how the information is shown to us. Change the representation, and you can totally change the understanding.
So is the framing effect just proofs that we're all irrational? Is it a bug in our mental software that we need to patch? Well, some researchers are starting to look at it in a slightly different way.
This more nuanced view suggests that being sensitive to framing isn't just a flaw. It might actually be an adaptive trait for communication. See, we subconsciously assume that when someone is talking, they choose their words, their frame, for a reason. So when a doctor says 200 people will be saved, our brain might infer, oh, that must be a good outcome. We're not just crunching numbers, we're trying to figure out what the other person is trying to tell us.
So I'll just leave you with this. Now that you know about this invisible architecture of choice, where are you going to start seeing it? When a news headline talks about the unemployment rate instead of the employment rate, when a product is sold as 99% effective instead of having a 1% failure rate, or maybe, most importantly, the next time a doctor explains the risks of a treatment. The frames are absolutely everywhere, but now you know how to see them.